Hello and welcome to Primeval Park. It's how to keep and care for crested geckos, which make great beginner reptiles because they're pretty easy to take care of and they aren't too aggressive. They're a bit more aggressive than a leopard gecko because they might bite you, but if they do, I mean, it's not going to do much, so don't worry about that. They live about 15 to 20 years, so it's kind of just a standard length for a gecko, but they can grow up to 6 to 10 inches, so you're going to need a pretty big cage. So all crested geckos are arboreal, which means they're going to need a high tank and not a landscape tank. I would say the minimum tank size should be 20 gallons, but I would always go larger because if it is going to grow 10 inches, I mean, you want it to have a lot of climbing space. So you're going to need a lot of branches in there, logs and stuff. I also use live plants, and a lot of people will recommend live plants because the geckos do like to hide in the plants as well. Within the enclosure, your gecko is going to need a lot of places to climb, and you'll need to provide it with branches, driftwood, cork bark, and some vines. If you want to go on a more cheaper side of that, as you can see here, we've made just some standard platforms and a little house in the back there as a little hide for it. So you can make it a much cheaper endeavor. So when you're buying a branch these days, they can be pretty hefty, around £9. So what I do, I just go to the woods. I know this is pretty controversial, but this technique has never let me down. If you get some woods, wash them, and you kind of make them parasite free, or just try to clean them as best you can, my reptiles never got a problem, or I've never been sick from it. But if this does happen, I'm saying it, do it at your own risk, so just be careful when doing this and don't let me if anything goes wrong. So obviously you're going to need a white light if you're going to have live plants within the cage, and I would also say you could put isopod and springtails in. I don't do this because, I mean, it is quite expensive, just do it all together, but I mean, if you're going to go for full bioactive, you might as well just put those in as well. You're also going to need a drainage system within your soil so your plants don't basically drown. And yeah, it's all a bit techy, but it can be done, and I would probably recommend that the most for a crested gecko. Also, on top of the white light, I mean, I would recommend to get UVB for all your reptiles, but if you can't afford this, then it's not an essential. But UVB just kind of helps all reptiles because it's very healthy for them, and it does increase fertility rate sometimes if you want to breed. But it's not an essential, so don't worry about that. So for humidity levels, the cresties are going to need around 60% humidity in the day and 80% at night, and you can do this by providing spag moss. Just mix it in with the substrate, or I just provide actual live moss in the cage, and that's going to provide a little humidity hotspot for your gecko to chill in. And also you have to spray that tank daily. If you kind of want to copy the natural environment, I kind of spray one day of a heavy shower, maybe the next day just a light drizzle, and then maybe a thunderstorm. You just gotta mix it up, and that will kind of, I don't know, it's just good for the enrichment apparently. Yeah. So if you're going bioactive, you're going to need 3 layers of soil, you're going to need clay balls at the bottom, and you're going to need a metal mesh membrane just from a garden centre or a hardware store. And then you can use cocoa fibre or just basically any substrate which is going to hold a lot of humidity, because that's very good for plants, and it's also just going to be good for your gecko. I also put in moss on the bottom of mine just to make some humidity hotspots, but it's obviously up to you. And a little fun tip, I put earthworms on mine when I have plants because that kind of just gets some nutrient flow going, I guess. So when it comes to feeding your crested geckos, you're going to need to get them a Rapashi food supplement, and this is basically like a powder. It can come in mango or raspberry, or there's quite a lot of fruit flavours. So just start them off with that, and then if you want them to grow bigger at a faster rate, you'll need to give them insects, so maybe a cricket as big as their head, and then you can kind of advance from there. Also, if the babies aren't switching to live food, what you can do is you can kill the cricket and rip its head off and kind of let it taste the juice, and then if it does that, it might normally bite and then it'll be hooked. So some people won't provide any heat for their crested gecko because they're extremely sensitive to temperature and they can get really stressed out if it's too high, but I provide them just a small heat map, or what a lot of people do is they also produce a low wattage red nighttime bulb, and that basically makes a good heat source, and then you can see the gecko in the night when it's going to be most active. But if you have a baby, I would always recommend just a tiny heat source because it's going to make them grow faster, and why not a bit of heat? I mean, they are from the jungle and stuff. And if I get shredded in the comments, I just want to say that I am aware that keeping quite a juvenile or baby leopard gecko in a large enclosure like this can be quite scary for them, and it can make them grow less fast and they get quite stressed out, but I have been monitoring her very carefully and she seems to be fine, and she's eating very well and she's growing at a good rate, so yeah. She says now she's in charming position.
Yeah.
Ooh,